What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Precipice of Delusion. I'm your host, Julian. It is Monday. Wow. Guys, I am coming to you from the last podcast that I'm actually recording from this studio space. I have backlogged a couple of other episodes because I'm in the process of moving, but I am sad and happy to say that this studio will no longer be my studio anymore. I will be, bless you. How is Rachel? Love ya. There you go. I'm feeling a lot of feelings, but most of all, I'm feeling really grateful to have this beautiful new space with Rachel that we're moving into tomorrow, actually. And so this whole place is pretty much stripped down. We're pretty much living in boxes. It sucks, to be quite honest, and it feels very strange, and I don't love it, but it is what it is, and we are moving through it. We're just kind of like living in a storage unit at this point in our lives, which, it just kind of has to happen. But we have a beautiful new place. We're going to be living up in the area called Hamilton Heights, which is a little bit above Harlem. We found this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place that I just cannot even believe that we're going to be living in. And we're so happy, so excited. The puppies are excited. So they're going to have nice space. It's like twice the size of our place now. It's just like luxurious. So hit us up for a dinner party if you guys want to come party with us. Because we are going to be cooking up some fucking steak frites, baby. Guys, this episode is really special to me. It is with a guy that I am a big fan of. His name, if you don't already know him, is Mr. Son Little, also known as Aaron Livingston. He is truly an artist above all things. He just kind of like bleeds the artist's kind of essence, in my opinion, and I just find him so fascinating and so like cerebral in such a cool way, and his thoughts on art and his thoughts on himself as an artist and just kind of the culture and where we're all at and what he hopes to do and is doing just really move me in a really cool way. And I have been so just blessed to have him come onto this show and give us his time. We talk for over 2 hours, and I'm not cutting any of it. I'm keeping it all in. We go all over the spectrum. And one of my favorite parts about this episode is that he takes me on this journey about this experience that he had with doing, I forget the name, Sonoran Toad. They like synthesized like toad secretion, and you smoke it. It's a ceremony people do. I'm sure many of you listeners may know about this, but many of you might not. And essentially, it's kind of maybe it's similar to that of like an ayahuasca ceremony or something like that, but not at all. And he walks us through the whole experience. You can listen to it in this episode, but it is pretty profound. And I was so amazed by his takeaway from the whole experience, which really kind of like brought me into this space of feeling more in touch with the notion of faith and surrender. He was kind of the one that sparked those thoughts for me and has had me kind of questioning a lot of things about myself lately and thinking differently. He is a legend, just a champion of a human being, and obviously his music is crazy. I didn't even like think about talking about him as a musician even yet because he's just so dope. But his music is out of this world. He's one of my favorite artists. He's one of a lot of my friends' favorite artists. If you haven't listened to him already, just go download his catalog, go stream his music, play it all, and just like transport and transcend yourself into his space and ecosystem, because it is really, really something special. And he reflects a lot of his own personal experiences into his music, and you can kind of hear it in this podcast. Really helped shape some of that music for me to be able to kind of listen to it with a new with a new point of view about. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience with him. And yeah, friend of mine now. We're going to be buds. And I just am so excited to let you listen to this man, because if you weren't aware of him before, buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because this man is a real treat. Um, Say goodbye to this studio. I know that you're not in it and you're not with me, but maybe the reverb and the ambiance might be a little different. I hope I'm just really inspired. I think I'm gonna be. It's gonna be really nice, guys. I just can't wait. It is gonna be so fantastic. Guys, check it out. If you haven't already, check out my Patreon page. It is where you are going to really help me grow this podcast. I know I talk about it a lot and I hate asking for money, but it's $5 a month. And you can just join and get exclusive stuff, podcasts, puppet shows, movies that are unreleased that I'm putting up there, different little, like little vlogs and other things that I'm trying to do, make something of value to you guys. So if this podcast resonates with you and you like it, then it would be my greatest honor if you went to the Patreon page and checked it out. It would help this podcast grow, and it would help me grow as a person. So thank you so much, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all those things. And yeah, screw it, man. Let's get into the podcast, why don't we, huh? This is me and my friend Son Little.
I expect a lot of myself sometimes, and it can be brutal. Like, man, you'll be good. Like, just you can get up the next day and do that. That'll be fine, But it's sometimes you oversell it a little bit.
Is that, do you think that's probably learned behavior of yourself that you picked up when you became a professional at something?
Probably somewhat.
I struggle with discipline a lot. Like not in that like I struggle to be disciplined. I struggle to like stop being disciplined.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes,
It's
to
tough.
stop working is I mean, I think inertia is a bad mother, So inertia in either direction is pretty powerful. But like I can relate to. I'm an early riser, so I get things, and I
How
tend
early are
to
we
just
talking?
get up like obscenely early. So like 3 and 4 in the morning sometimes.
What?
So yeah, I know, very
Whoa.
strange.
What time are you going to bed? 7:30?
I mean, ideally, yes.
Really? Wow.
I mean, no, I mean probably like more or 9 or 10. But
Dang, man, you gotta
I'll
have some
get right
blackout
up
curtains for that.
and kind of just get going. So like
Wow.
by like 3 or 4, I'm like ready for a nap. I mean, let alone like more. I'm like 11 a.m. I'm ready for a nap. But
Yeah, I bet.
it's like you would think, and that's been one of my big almost resolutions was that I was going to cut myself off. Like if you start working at 5 or 6 in the morning, then like what would be wrong with stopping at 3 p.m. 4
For
p.m.
sure.
makes sense,
It's
right?
all relative.
But I realized over the years that like I would get again the inertia going and end up working like 17 hours, one day when and then struggling to find the energy the next day or so then my rhythm became this really choppy thing because I was often like working all the way to complete exertion and then like having to recover for days after as opposed to being able to you know work a reasonable amount each day. So
Yeah.
I'm in a creative flow but also living a life.
I hear that, man. I mean, I find it really hard to figure out how to distribute my energy effectively because I'll just kind of put it all into something or that like I'm a little bit of an extremist in this regard. Just all or nothing. And then like everything goes everywhere. And sometimes like even in, relationships or whatever, I'm like giving myself to all of these people. And
Right.
especially as a musician, you get up on stage, you're pouring every ounce of your energy into that performance. And it can really take a toll on you. And if you don't learn how to distribute it appropriately or conserve it and preserve it for yourself, it can get really tricky. It sounds like you're kind of in a space right now with yourself where you're learning, or you have already learned how to kind of like preserve that for yourself. I might be wrong,
Right.
but
We're learning, you know.
mm,
I don't know. Hopefully that always on a path of learning,
yeah,
otherwise you're not really moving forward. But um, yeah, working on it. I don't get. I'm at like probably 5 to 7 hours per night of sleep. So I
sleeping.
think I think that's what you're supposed to get 8, right? Maybe it's different for some people, but I'm
Would you
trying
would you if you could, or can you just not?
no, I just usually just don't. I just don't. 7 is great.
Yeah,
seven
I
is
love
seven.
sleeping.
If I get 7, I'm like, wow,
Yeah, get
this
some
was
lightning.
this was a good night.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I see half your face, by the way. I don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, there it
Really?
is. Yeah, like I'm sorry. Here,
That's all
I'm
you.
like, I gotta. I should know. Like, it doesn't matter
Even
what
still?
time of year. Like, my sinuses go crazy all year long.
No worries,
So if
man.
I have to sit down, getting me to sit still for a whole hour, Julian, is like pretty weird thing to be even doing. To be honest,
Well,
like
I
me,
really.
just sits right in one spot, and yeah,
Hey,
okay.
man, get up and do some jumping jacks if you need to.
I'm like, don't
Whatever you
move
got to
around.
do, man.
So don't pace around, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, whatever you want, man. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you
I
actually
have
sitting
to
down and
pan
taking the
out.
time to chat. It means a lot, man. Is my face still cut off? Is it because of your?
No, I got it now. I got
Oh, you got it. Cool.
it. Yeah.
Even when I do this, still good.
Yeah. I mean,
Great.
I lost the 1 year, but that's all right. It's like a 1 year
Really? It
off.
changes. It changes when I do this.
Wait, do what?
Well, I don't know. So is it just
Well,
this way?
it's fine.
We good? You
That's good.
sure?
That's perfect, man. I see your whole
Okay.
head. I see your
Okay.
whole
Great.
head.
That's
Both
weird. I think it's just
ears.
because of
You know. I
nice,
see
dude. You
now
gotta see
that
the
you have.
ears.
Now I see that you have 1 year off, which is
That's the style,
both
baby. Come
both
on.
ears. Did Alan
Come
teach
on,
you that
dude.
too?
I don't know. I'm just trying to look cool,
Alan
dude.
was like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? What are you doing?
Whoa,
Sit
dude.
down.
Hold up, hold up, hold up.
You
Bro,
know
we
what?
don't put both headphones
You have
on.
both
What is
kids?
this, an amateur hour?
Get that out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes when I have both headphones in, I feel like I'm too plugged in and I'm just like
Yeah,
in the
no,
matrix
I
and it
get it.
scares me.
I mean, you
So
are. You're a little cut
it's nice
off
to have
from
one off.
your
Um,
surroundings. Supposedly that is, I'm just saying that supposedly it's not the best for your ears, but
putting
this
both
isn't loud
headphones on?
music though. This, I think it's loud music is probably a bigger deal, but
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
that's someone who's been on stage like,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
better.
yeah. I always, I've wore in-ear monitors a couple times being on stage, and it's like it is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
It's so wild, and you
Takes
really
a
got to
little bit.
adjust to that. But then once you do, it's like, oh, obviously this is why people wear these. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, as far as how to fix your performance. But
Yeah,
uh, I think, yeah, and people are working on this. I don't have like the newest, latest personally, but um,
you don't got the bejeweled,
I don't
sweetest ones, dude.
have the Rolls Royce of
Damn, dude,
in ears. I'm a
better
little,
step
a
it
little
up.
behind. A little behind.
Come on, dude,
I
get with
got
the
like the
times.
Windows 98 of
Encarta.
in ears. They're like this big.
Yeah,
But,
that's awesome.
or like,
You
I think they're working on getting that like a better spatial feel, like so that you're getting more not bleed, but where you're getting the atmospheric sound as well
Hmm.
mixed in with what you're getting from the board or whatever, But
Yeah. How many people do you typically rock with on stage?
uh, mostly two or three at the most. I mean,
Oh, cool.
I do about half my shows are solo, so
Oh, wow.
they
By
have.
choice, like you want that to be the case?
Yeah, it's just a different feel. Um, I get more opportunities to tell jokes, for example,
Hmm. For
and
sure.
stories and things.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe opens up the range of what I can play too, because I'm not confined by what any particular group knows.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I kind of like to go back and forth.
Are they the same guys when they do come on stage with you that always show up?
That's a kind of like ever changing
Yeah. Seems to be the case with a lot of musicians.
scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way that it has to be. I think that's what allows musicians freedom to really make enough loop,
Yeah.
is to be able to move around and do different projects. And I mean,
I'm always
not to mention that, I think for any artist, the variation is key to your sanity, to the life of your
sure.
creativity. Is
Sure.
definitely helped by like influx of newness.
I know, man. I think back to like the Hall and Oates guys going through their like legal battles and stuff right now, and I saw them. Alan opened for them for like a season in
Who is it?
Hall and Oates,
No, sorry.
uh, and I didn't know that I would know every single song of their 2.5 hour set by heart when they started playing. I was literally singing along to every, and I was like, "Whoa, dude, this is insane!" But like there's nothing new about anything that they're doing. They're showing up and they're doing the same thing over and over again. So, and whatever. Like I can't speak to their own situation, but I imagine that gets really difficult after a while to like keep maintaining and trying to just like keep hitting it over the head and being like, all right, cool, we're just going to keep showing up and doing this same thing because the people love it, but it doesn't
Right.
feel creative, it doesn't feel like inventive. That must be very strange and create problems, which obviously
Yeah.
we have seen in the tabloids. So uh,
Well, I think it's an interesting thing. Like, I wish people, you know, this was like an area of study at college or something like that. Like, analyze, some of these dynamics. Because if you look at bands, like, I feel like was like a sociologist or anthropologist to learn a lot about humans just like watching bands because it's kind of the same things
yeah,
happen
totally.
over and over. You like take a bunch of kids that like grew up together and they're best friends and they like create this thing together and it's a secret language only they
Mm,
know and then like somehow it translates to this larger group and as soon as it does that with the connected to this larger corporate or business entity, like it reaches all these people and like almost simultaneously like self-destructs at the same time.
right,
And it's
right.
kind of just like in this like free
Yeah.
fall from then on. Like it's part of this machine, and you're like no longer. It's no longer the thing you made in the garage. It's like this echo, that this imprint of that like never changes. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you're just like
Hmm.
along for the ride, which I think for a lot of people.
When you your career and other people's career, you're obviously in the music space, so you spend a lot of time with other people that are also in that space, and probably people that are at like varying levels behind you and above you and right where you're at. Do you like have you spent any time like trying to quantify what works and what doesn't work for artists? Like what is it? Because talent isn't the metric of success, right?
That's
In singing and in art or in acting for me or in any art form. And so when you see people that are really far above and they're making a ton of money and they're selling out arenas, like do you know what the difference is, like what that thing, because people are like, oh, it's just luck, like maybe that's just the component that we're missing, but like what prevents artists that are dope as fuck, who are incredible, who are just not getting there? Like what some people choose, right? Like I don't know if you would be the kind of guy that would want to sell out arenas if you had the opportunity, but you could correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah. I mean, no, that's not something I would have asked for. I mean, I guess if you asked me at 15 or
Sure.
16, if that's what I wanted, then I probably would have, no hesitation. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But everything that I saw and learned since then, as I gone along, told me, yeah, that's not really where. Maybe
Hmm.
it's certainly not where I belonged at any point thus far. So, um, but I think it's not any one thing. It's gonna be a whole range of things. I mean, there's some, for a lot of people it is talent. Like you can't progress
Sure.
past a certain point if you don't have a certain amount of talent, maybe. And then luck can be like where you're born. Who your parents were.
Where
Who
you
they
grew up.
knew.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and like any number of things. I mean, those sort of like arena levels artists that you're talking about, like there are only a handful of them, so there's also that. I mean, everybody can't, you can only get so many people to show up to an
Sure.
arena.
Yeah.
you know,
True.
the arena can only have so many shows at once,
Yeah.
so like,
I
there's,
guess just for
that.
like the yeah, the like for the standard music listener who doesn't know enough about music and the intricacies of the business and how it all works, when they see somebody that they really like, they're like, wow, this person is unbelievable. Why are they? It's like the same thing that we talked about like the first time. It's just like, you should be on American Idol. You know what
Yeah.
you should do? You should be selling out arenas. It's just like, well, thanks. Like,
Yeah. All right.
I appreciate, yeah, the great suggestion. I'm going to get right on
Yeah,
that.
let me
It's
get
just like,
my
yeah, exactly. Let me get my pen.
hello
Let me call my
arenas.
agent real quick. Yeah, yeah. 1-800 arenas. um, uh, but it's an interesting thing because it's just like, what is the separation between this person and that person? It's talent aside. It's just like there's all of these different components that make up an artist, that make you viable, that make you somebody in the space that is gonna like sell tickets, put butts in seats. But like, how did, like, it's just reach. Because if you had a million people listening to you right now, I'd say 95% of them would be captivated by it, and then you'd have that reach the same way with another
Right,
person
right.
who has that reach right now. And
Yeah,
so it's kind of like this interesting thing, like how do you like attain that reach? Do you want that reach? I don't know. It's so tricky to be like, where do I want to be? Because I'm right where I'm at, and I hope that's satisfactory for most people, but I think oftentimes it's not. Because like, well, why are we working then? We're working to grow. We're working to keep getting better. And
right.
what do we want? And what is the difference? And am I bitter because I'm not there? Like, how do you navigate all that stuff for
Well, I
yourself?
think, I mean, you saw, like, I was, when I was like still green at it, like
Hmm.
there was, you could see even then, like I talked to, you know to people at labels, big and small, and I mean, when I talk to like industry people early in my career, like there was a real theme of, you know, you're great, you're brilliant, you're special. We don't know what to do with this.
Mm.
Like it wasn't rap significantly. It wasn't like necessarily like rock or contemporary R&B of that time, so at that point it was like there's nowhere to go with this, and
Right.
over the space of time since, we have seen, the internet open up avenues
Mm-hmm.
for people to really present whatever they like. And but even back then, I mean, you saw like Master P and them like try to like, get people outside of the South to listen to them, but like they weren't hearing it, and
Yeah.
same with like other son, UGK in Texas, like same thing, like they trying to get people outside of their region, New York, to listen to them, and it and they wouldn't, but like Masterpiece, well, goes outside and sells 1 million records out of his trunk, and then all of a sudden they want to they want to pay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, please come sit down in there. They want to talk, and so we already kind of knew that, just because the industry, or like the taste makers of the industry, like we that maybe they don't really know what's cool, or maybe they don't even know what they even like,
Sure.
we
Sure.
we learn that from those kind of experiences, like where you see all these people that get told no, and then there's no market for this, but like, and I know I personally have really felt, as I've progressed in my career, just to some ways vindicated in that, like, I'm not, what I do now is not significantly different from what I did 20 years ago, to be honest with
Hmm.
you. And I've watched like the whole like music industry grow towards what I was doing 20 years ago. So
Mm.
I feel a bit, there can be a little bitterness at times. And I think there are moments where I'm like, man, like
Yeah.
this
What
is
is that
exactly the
specifically?
kind of shit I was doing way back in the day, and
Yeah.
it's
What
like
is that?
there's
Like
no
what
market.
are examples of that?
Um, I mean, honestly, like I mean, it's now like I mean, even just a buzzword about artists, like the genre bending, like if you listen to, um, like a lot of the different pop albums,
Mm-hmm.
and this is not me like casting aspersion at anybody, but
No, not at all.
if you listen to a Rihanna album, Beyonce album, like the Miguel, like
Yeah. Sure.
you're hearing these genre movements from one to the next, where like, you know this was exactly the kind of thing, or songs that like don't fit at all neatly in any genre, but clearly borrow from
Right.
different
Right.
areas, like those are all things that like, um I always loved about my own music, and I think other
Mm-hmm.
people did too, but in the past that was seen as a liability from a marketing standpoint. So,
Yeah, that's frustrating.
in the end though, rather than be bitter, it's like, well, I mean, gosh, I'm so glad that it grew towards me instead of away, like that
Yeah,
certainly
that's a
would have been
great
a lot
perspective,
worse. I
man.
mean, it presents a lot of really amazing, it has presented and continues to present a lot of really amazing opportunities for me that didn't exist before,
Yeah, sure.
and I was kind of like, I don't know, to the point a couple times of like, well, I'll always engage in music and love music, and it's going to be a core part of me no matter what else happens, like I may just, it may just not be a part of my, uh, like what I do for a living. I may have to make a living some other way, and was sort of like on a ready to just like walk off into the sunset.
Yeah, right,
Go like,
right.
well, I guess I'll substitute teach my way to, or whatever.
Sure, sure.
So, but which I think, there's no shame in none of that. I don't know, like badass guitar player uh uh I used to see around every now and then, and I tried to get him to play with me a few times, and we would all like he would get ready to. We'd be like a couple of weeks out from the tour. I'd like send him the songs, and like, oh man, I can't make it. And I'm like, really? Like he did to a
Yeah.
couple of times, and then finally he just said, like I've been teaching. Um, I took like I got a bunch of students now, and like I really enjoy doing it. Like I
Wow.
love like showing other people and like watching them learn and improve on these skills. And like I
You're like, what
see
does
what
that
you're
feel
doing, and it's
like?
probably really exciting, but like
Yeah.
I don't think it's for me. Like I think I need to be here doing this, and I never look back. I would keep in touch with him, and now he teaches my son. And
Oh man, isn't that crazy how people who are really talented and gifted have the wherewithal to do something like that?
yeah, well, that's
And
somebody
could you?
that's like a real. I mean that's a real. That's a calling. Where you have because he had, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that like asked him to play like that. So
Sure.
to have those kind of opportunities open to you, and actually when you look into yourself, realize like no, actually my heart wants something different.
Right.
Is really admirable, which is why I was like, well, if I ever have somebody that needs to learn guitar, I know who I'm calling.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I have so much respect for people who, kind of just know. Yeah, you can call it a calling, but you can also just be like, oh, they got out because maybe they recognize, and who knows, like this is, my own like theory on this, but this is a tough business, man. Like being an entertainer in this world, in this space is crazy, and it requires so much out of you. So to think of just going and being a teacher and working out of a studio and having some students come and like being of service to those like young kids or old people or whoever they are, it's just like, whoa. And you also have the resources at your fingertips to be able to go out and get on stage and do that thing, and you're choosing to not, and you're choosing to go do this other thing.
Yeah.
I always look at people that do that, people, friends of mine who get out of acting or get out of music or whatever, and it's like, and they have the opportunity to do it. I'm like, I'm kind of jealous. I don't know if I could do it myself, but like that, like, good on you, man. That's incredible. It's really admirable.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I could do it.
Well, it's probably this is for you, I guess. Then you know what I mean. It's like it is really tough, and yet it works for some people. It does.
Yeah.
It does. Like I think it does, or kind of choose you. In my case, I certainly feel that way. Like I feel like I was at times like trying. Many times in my life, I've been
To
trying
stop.
to get away from it,
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
and
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do it. I
What
mean,
is that? That's so interesting.
I
Just the thing, just like
don't
the pull.
yeah, I don't.
Mental illness.
Yeah, I'm like, are you sure you want to know
Yeah.
answer
Yeah.
this question? I'm like, I don't know, Julian. You really want to go there?
Yeah. Well, it's probably that probably is what it is, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, well, my therapist would say, no, like just that, I think you go where you're, like wherever there's lessons for you, to be learned. Again, learning for me is what it all, because we're here doing something. We're gathering information,
Yeah.
right? If nothing else, right? And you win, you lose. You gain insight, and
Mm-hmm.
I think um, where I need my spirit needed to gain insight in the world of you know booze and
Mm-hmm.
pretty women. That's where
Don't I know it, dude?
that's that's what I needed. So
When you were in that phase, just since you brought it up, like how did you manage to stay productive, or did you, like, because how long did that period of your life like actually last, where you were just like fully just consumed by just like being a party boy?
monster,
Yeah.
Mon- party on two legs. No, I was never really like that, to be honest. I mean, for me, what I think what there really is a real tension between, um, and maybe this is maybe it's a conceit for me to think that this could be just a me thing, but like it's a tension between, like, as you said, like we're doing a thing on stage, everybody's looking at you, like, which for me is not necessarily, I was never the one, like, family parties, like doing a dance for everybody. That's not me, like,
Mm-hmm.
I was quietly in the corner, like messing around with the piano, so
Yeah.
um my abilities and, like, put me in a position to be on stage, but like that part of the experience is, I guess, like extrovert introvert. It doesn't, like, give me lots of energy. It really
Mm-hmm.
drains me. So
Sure.
it's a I think, like, when you start engaging with substances, and again, sleep is a big part of this
Deprivation.
too, because really, um, that's where the real fun begins. Right now, we're on the road, and we sleep like 2 hours a night or 3 hours a
So
night, and
crazy.
um, flipping time zones and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You are constantly near really close to other people, which, for, again, introverted people, it's like it's really draining. So,
Yeah.
and there are not a lot of opportunities to, like, find equilibrium again. If once you get to reach to that point, like, whoa, I'm oversaturated. Like, I can't really deal with too many more. I don't want any more fist pump bumps. I don't need
Yeah.
no, like,
Yeah. Sure.
don't give me any dap. Like, I don't really want to,
Yeah.
like, hear the
Yeah.
story about how you found out nothing.
I don't.
Like,
I
no
don't need. I don't
disrespect to
need your
anybody.
mom's tuna noodle casserole that she brought for
Just
my
like,
show.
like.
Yeah.
Or, and I'm sure, people with me, like, man, I've heard that story like 5 times already, like, that
Mm,
sort of thing. Like, if there's really nowhere to go to escape that in those
yeah.
situations. And I think probably, like, more than a lot of people realize, their favorite artist is actually, just, like, they might be, and I'm not among this group, but they might be wearing like an alien costume. Like, you're not realizing they're wearing this alien costume because can't,
Sure.
they don't want to engage. Like,
Yeah. It's
it's,
it's an
it's,
indication.
yeah, they're actually hiding their real self,
Yeah.
So you're maybe often, people, I think, you just assume you're dealing with this extroverted person that is the life of the party, and a lot of the time that's really not the case.
What do you do? What do you do to get yourself taken care of while, because you've been on the road? You just were in Europe for a stint, all right? Like quite a long time. And
I'm keeping them. I keep them pretty, well, relatively short these days, and don't string them together much.
oh, that's cool.
I was for a few years, and I think like a lot of people are used to. As you go, you're adding more, and like you'll take a few days here, and I think like back in the early days of it, I was really, and I had, at that time, an enabler in this sense at that time, where like, my drummer at that time, Jesse, he would, like me, like we would get home and. The first day, oh, I'm so glad I'm here, and sleep super hard, and then the next day, I'd be like, get me out of here as soon as possible. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait to leave.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, an inertia that got hard to stop was, like, I'm so sort of uncomfortable, and home seems so alien to me that I'm just leaving as often as possible. But,
Yeah, dude. I mean, just your relationship to stimulation alone is like you come home, and when you've been stimulated on stage for even like just a week, even let's say, and you come home and it's just the opposite of that. It's even
right,
the idea of like going back to the bus or back to your hotel room after the show. It's
right,
just it's this jarring experience that you're just kind of like stuck with yourself after this like really high.
right, right,
And it's kind of a fascinating thing, I think, for a lot of people who don't do it, because it's just like, whoa, how do you, like, what does coming back home feel like? Like, especially if you got kids and stuff, like, how do you enter, like, that part of your life? How do you like show up, and how do you balance? It's a really, really tricky balancing act, it seems like.
yeah. I'm trying to basically balance or match the trip with rest
That's
at
great.
this point. Like, I mean, I think just just from observing, I feel like if I'm gone a week, it takes me a week to feel normal again when I come back. Usually, I mean, depending on where how far are we talking about, because that makes a difference too. But
Right.
you know,
That's not always available to artists though, right? Like, kind of just have to take what you
true,
can, because
true,
you don't have the option to like
right.
parse out your tour like that, because
Right.
you're just
Well,
like,
you have to be, you have to uh, be lucky to just be in that position to begin with, or kind of you fight your way there somehow, which is what you know.
mm-hmm.
I think, and I mean, gosh, I wish I had more of this, but you know, it takes some time. I think to get there, but um, yeah,
Mm.
when I can, I try to like balance the run with rest, and then just go and then go again, as opposed to running end to end to end.
Do you like where you're at in your life?
um yeah, I think I've often not liked it, even though there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I think we've all been there, where you just think whatever you have is not enough. This is cool, but I just wish I don't think there's any big like, oh, I just wish I nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems like you've kind of designed your life around what you needed and wanted, and you've kind of gotten to this point now, and as an adult who's been doing this for decades, and you've kind of curated your own experience to serve your like best self, so that you can show up and be the artist that you actually want to show up as. And I wonder how like often that even is like a possibility for so many people doing this, a similar thing, where they just run themselves ragged because they don't have the option to take care of themselves and like and lean into self-love and self-care, because it's just like I just gotta keep going. I gotta keep paying the bills. I gotta
Yeah,
keep doing this. They're giving me this opportunity. I can't say no.
yeah. I think you're totally right that a lot of people, and I've heard a friend describe this as the hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he was talking about in that case about just the album concept of like an album cycle, like the way that it operates. And this was like the first time I signed a label in 2013. So this was like my first time out of the contract. I got, and it was a really positive experience overall for me being with the label. I know it's like a lot of people have these like nightmare stories, but and I'm really glad and fortunate, like grateful. Mine is not a nightmare story at all. It really helped me fulfill a lot of dreams and goals, and like um in a way that didn't compromise my standards and ethics and morals, and that's that's saying a lot, right now.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for it, but at the same time, it's not the same as when you are uh like when you're working as an amateur, and I think we usually think of amateur now has this the amateur has this like negative connotation, but like
Sure. Right. Right.
really like I think I would have to look it up. I'll misquote it, but like I think if you look like the origins of that word, like it really is more about like your approach to what you're doing. Like it's not a work made for hire.
Mm,
This is not a commodity that you're selling. Like this is
mm-hmm.
my expression, this expression of my like to the best of my ability inside this artistic medium is what an amateur is doing. So like there's something about the way you approach work with that mindset that I mean I will stop just short of saying it's superior, but it's like there's a potency there, to it. I mean, almost to like the attitude of like I'm gonna make this thing and like break all the rules or just paint with the color so loud that like if it might just be too much, it will suck. Like this could be grotesque because I don't give a fuck, like
Mm-hmm.
if how this turns out. Like I don't give a fuck what the result of this is. So it has a like, and I think when you make music for hire or like with connected to a big entity, you can sort of like portray that attitude. But
Right.
I think there's just something in the molecules of like
Yeah.
an artist creating with no attachment, with not beholden to anything,
For
is
sure.
is like a special thing. So it's a tricky switch to go from one to the other, and I think a lot of things that fall apart like that could be just the main thing that falls why it doesn't work. That alone, just like you turn that switch, can you still like can you still do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Totally.
Or did it require that like recklessness to be
Mm-hmm.
cool, like and sometimes like sometimes I think you flip that switch and it's like, oh, yeah, it's not really there.
Right,
Like I don't
man.
know how to make this fit this into this box. And
Yeah.
that happens with songs, but I think it probably happens with whole artists as well, like where you flip the switch and uh, like I don't think anyone's immune to it. Like you flip the switch, the artist is different in that
Right,
scenario. Let's
man.
do
I mean,
two
you're talking
things.
about, like amateurs versus professionals. And when you think about that on like a level of what we like, the connotation of those things, not necessarily the actual like real definition of those things, but we assume that, okay, once you're a pro, you're making money. When you're an amateur, you're not, right? But I see hobbyist musicians, hobbyist artists that have a love, because
Yeah,
they haven't added commerce to the equation of their thing.
yeah,
And that's the switch you're talking about, right? Like
right.
once that switch is flicked, once you go into the studio or once you go into the label meeting and they're like, all right, here's your contract. Now this is your advance. Now you have all this money. Now you have all this responsibility. It's like it removes the love component from it, and it creates a pressure component that's like, okay, now you actually have deadlines and responsibilities. And now like it almost just like interferes. It's almost like a backwards thing. It kind of just like it kind of does the opposite of what it should be doing, right? Rather than like supporting you and like elevating this thing that you had prior to it, it kind of like pushes it into this box and gets it like scared and makes you kind of
Yeah.
like have insecurities and be like, oh no, now what am I supposed to do? And like,
Well, what
are
do
there
you?
even like, yeah,
It's hard to take. I mean, to take risk when. I mean, it's like a paradox. It's a paradoxical situation where, like,
yeah,
man, there's so much riding on this. Got to put your best foot forward.
yeah,
The only way to put your best foot forward is to just not give a fuck.
easier said than
Your
done.
best foot forward is your fucking complete, like, unthinking white mind, like you're just like tuned in to the to the
Yeah,
frequency, right? Like it's not you're not trying to make a hit. You're fucking just making hits because that's what you
you're just
do,
making
you know.
hits. Yeah.
As soon as you're like, well, we gotta look, guys. This is serious. We gotta make sure we kill it.
Hmm.
Like, all right, well, let's make sure we kill it. As soon as you
Yeah.
like lose that, like you're just trying to make something that's like it's like a baseball pitcher. Like, I mean, sometimes it's the difference between like, all right, it's a full count in the World Series at the bottom of the ninth, you know, right? Like,
Hmm.
you can't throw a complete piece. The bases are loaded. You can't throw a ball in the dirt,
Hmm.
right? You got to throw a strike. You got to.
Hmm.
But like
Yeah.
you can't throw it right down the middle because
Yeah.
this
You gotta throw
fucker
a
will
tricky
hit it over
strike.
the fence, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta like put it on the corner
Yeah. You gotta be
of the
very
plate,
intentional and
right?
very
It's
specific.
right, and that so like there's a couple ways you might try to do that, and sometimes a person will try to like just pinpoint and like aim it right at. Nah,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work. Like that's not gonna
Yeah.
work. That's gonna result you lose. Like almost like 99% of the time, you try to like aim it in there, it doesn't work. It's got to be like a completely like it's got to come from like the bottom, the pit of your it's for your tailbone. Like it has to be your full has to have your full consciousness, not this like accountant in your brain. It's something much
Mm.
deeper than that you have to tap into. Um, and it's very, like you said, easier said than done because it's like it has to happen right now. So to be able to call upon that is a rare skill.
Just to be, yeah. I mean, just to be able to trust that you can,
Right.
right? Because it's also going to translate to you can tell even uh, an objective listener can sense that difference in that purity versus that manufacturing.
Right.
And I think it's just so interesting because I gotta believe the major majority of let's just say musicians are not operating from that space. At least the ones that we see in pop culture that we know that we're aware of, and I could be totally wrong. Um, but I feel like I don't know if I can buy into the
Yeah.
reality that people are leaning into that their instincts. I don't give a fuck. I'm
Yeah.
going with the breeze. I'm feeling myself. I'm trusting that like my intuitions in this space are free and me and authentic to my journey and what's actually happening. And so, yeah, we see these like once in a generation artists. You're one of them that get to put out this music, that get to make this stuff that's like, whoa, this is transcendent. This isn't just like, some curated pop song that's meant to be on the radio that like is gonna be played in the clubs. This is like really, really thoughtful, moving music that is meaningful, that has like real something underneath it that's not just music. Even it's like
Yeah.
it has a life of its own. But I just don't think that's really the focus of like this business either, to like generate
No,
that kind of stuff.
no. Well, it's sort of like we have, you know, it was at one point, I think, in the '90s, like if people, and look, this is me. I'm saying this as someone who has like, I've had my music synced on all kinds of different
Of
things,
course, yeah, yeah.
and like you give me a commercial for Cadillac or something,
Yeah,
like
of
I'll
course,
fucking
dude.
take,
Please and thanks.
bring
Ching
it right
ching.
over.
Yeah, of course.
Come on.
Yeah. Oh, don't
Just I
mind if I
just I
do.
just threw that out there, by the way. That wasn't like
Right.
I'm not.
Of course.
Just it just came to
I mean,
mind.
maybe
Kind
you
of like
manifested
I
it.
could kind of
Yeah.
see, I could
Yeah. I
kind of
could feel it. I could see that.
but like back in the day, it was like that was unheard of. Like you sold your music, like got licensed to a product, like you were a sellout, like a pariah. Let's burn them at the stake, like.
Right.
So I think like there was this point where, okay, the you know ad and marketing was like, oh, this is not the era of like a snappy jingle. This is like, let's just use, you want to sell stuff to the youth, like let's just use the shit they're already listening to, so we're
Hmm.
gonna use the music to sell our stuff. But like now, like it's sort of like flipped to the point of, like where the music is just like that's the purpose of music. Is,
Right.
before it's like, oh, let's use the phenomenon of this music to sell our product. Like now it's just like the products is so huge that it's just like, all right, we can just take like whoever in here, you want, because anyone will, like you said, like anyone will take that gig. So
Yeah.
it's just like, here, we'll have this, we'll take this and repurpose it this way, we'll deconstruct this and turn it in. What is this? A song about revolutionary change? Yeah, okay, fine. We don't
Hmm.
care. We're gonna use it to sell Tide Pods because that's what we don't, because they don't give a fuck.
And they're killing it.
They are killing it.
Damn. Yeah. It's it's it
Speaking of killing it, by the
sucks.
way, I saw your reel. I hadn't
Oh,
seen your
cool.
reel before. I was looking at your reel, and what is the movie where you like are like eating people's hearts and you're like a zombie maniac? What is that? That
That's the show called Z Nation. It was like a sci-fi show that was like a C-list Walking Dead.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
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 That was pretty amazing, man. I had to
Dude,
like rewind that part a couple times. So I was
you
like,
should
what just happened
you should
there? That was crazy.
the whole episode I get my face blended off by an egg beater. So it gets crazier.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not in the reel cuz it doesn't show my real acting skills, but it
Well,
was
right,
pretty wild.
I was pretty impressed. You're like, that's not the one that usually people bring up. I'm like, you're pretty
Yeah.
good, man. I
Thanks,
saw
dude.
that. I was
I
like,
appreciate
wow, this Julian guy, he's all right.
it.
That
This
scene was
Julian guy, he's
something
all
else.
right.
I was like, what did he just do? He's like eating
Yeah.
someone's head.
It's crazy, man. Yeah,
Wow,
those zombie shows are wild, man. They really get you going,
that's a whole genre of its own, huh? I
dude,
guess.
for sure, man. There's so many like spin-off and different like that show Walking Dead is like in its 87th season. It's just like people are like back from the dead, coming back. It's just like they can do whatever they want, dude.
They're
It's just the Wild
walking,
West.
and you know,
Oh yeah.
they're at nighttime. They're at nighttime, daytime, whatever time. You know, they're
Whatever time they want, dude. They just make up their own rules. That's kind of the real idea, right? They're just like that's what TV's doing now. They're just like we can just there's so many streaming networks, there's so many places to create art and do whatever in so many like niche areas, so many different pockets of people who are interested in so many different things. You can just create anything and no matter how stupid it is. That show, Z Nation, like I'm grateful to have been on it. It's so ridiculous. And like I had some friends who were on that show regularly and they were great actors, but dude, like the whole show is like absolutely idiotic and it went for 6 seasons. Like that's a long time.
6 seasons. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm just out here doing TV stuff on shows like Blue Bloods and Law and Order and
Right. The
like
cops, like the amount of
NCIS
cops.
and
There's so many cops
dude,
on TV.
there's like 64 seasons of Law and Order, SVU. It's just
I was
like
actually just talking.
Ice T is on his like 14th season of Law and Order,
14.
dude.
Damn.
I don't.
I
Who
was just
knows,
talking
man?
to somebody about Law and Order yesterday, like how, like, and I was mimicking that sound. It's like, "Doo," like
Oh yeah,
how
yeah.
it's like,
So,
it's kind of like a reverse alarm clock. Like
right,
it
right.
puts you to sleep. Like for me, it's like as soon as I just hear, "Doo," you're like, I'm out.
Yeah, come out. That
Just like
reminds
on
me of
the
like
first,
MASH.
literally the
Right when I
first
was a
one, I'm like,
yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm
I'm good.
piecing. Yeah, yeah. It's so
I got
crazy,
that
man. I
sleep.
remember MASH when I was a kid. That used to always do it to me too, and it wasn't
Yeah.
even because of like that sound. It was just the theme song. Do
Oh yeah.
do 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 do
Yeah.
do 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 do.
Yeah.
I'm out, dude.
Suicide is painless, man. That's
Yeah, dude. Crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, man, these market like the acting world is the same thing as the music world. It's just a different beast, And everybody's out here just trying to like.
It's a bit more hurtful. I mean, let's be real. It's a little more
I
hurtful.
think so too.
It's a
Yeah.
little more personal because like you really very literally you'll be like, yeah. So you just don't fuck with me. That's basically what you're saying. it's like
Yeah.
it's like it's like so it's not that you're not good. You just
Yeah.
don't like me.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the hardest part, man. It's just like, yeah.
Get the fuck
I mean,
out.
trying to combat like
I don't know
that
how.
component of doing it and like this rejection cycle and really trying to, because any actor will tell you it's just like you got to stop buying into this like rejection narrative because like if you're getting the opportunity you're already good enough, it's not about how good you are or not being good enough. It's about just like being needed to be for the right direction, the right fit. But
Right.
bro, you're like, dude, you get put on hold so many times and you're like, okay, cool, I got it. You get connected to a character and then you're sitting around waiting for your agent and these casting directors to tell you, and then 3 weeks later you're sitting there, you're like just waiting for them to be like, okay, cool, like here's your dates, here's your schedule.
Yeah.
And then they hit you up and they're just like, hey, we actually decided to go a different direction. And you're just like,
Oof.
fuck.
Yeah, but you gotta go.
you know,
Thank you.
for sure.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for telling me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate you, reaching out and letting me know rather than
Eventually.
just keeping me in the dark.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
They're already shooting. They just were like, oh shit, we should probably just tell Julian that
You've been
he's
like,
not on hold
you've
anymore.
been like around your phone like,
Dude, for sure, dude. It's for sure. Just hovering, just like checking, scrolling down. Do I get an email? Did I get another email? Did I get another email?
Are you there? No? Okay.
You don't
Yeah.
have those things in music, huh? You're not like sitting
Not as
around waiting
much.
for an
Not as
agent to
much.
tell
I
you
mean
about like.
the other day I was I don't know, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this kind of stuff, but like I had got hit up for sec for a really big show, and like I have not really had a lot of like good or big like support opportunities, so like this one came up and I was like, wow, like this is a pretty big one. Like artists like I listened to for I knew from a long time ago, and I'm like trying not to get too hyped, you know.
Sure.
It's hard not to get hyped. Like I'm like I get kind of excited, and like time's going past, and just got to a point like the date was close enough. I'm like, yeah, this is not happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
not happening. And it was kind of, I was kind of bummed out. It's a little bit like that. I mean, and then it was interesting because the I saw when they like who they did pick.
Mm.
Like I really liked too, which I guess kind of helped because I'm like yeah, and I would see
Yes,
I guess they had like they're really like right behind an album like a new album too, so I was kind of like yeah, that makes more
it
sense
makes sense.
because I'm not in that space right now, so I don't
Right.
I'm not pressing something at the moment, so
Sure. But at the same time, you're like, if you're considered, you're like, you get your heart invested into something, right? And
yeah.
then you're like, okay, cool. Like, and then, for me, I've had to break this cycle of like, I used to get like auditions and get a call back for something, and I would start forecasting like my future. Be like, okay, I'm buying a boat, dude. I'm gonna fucking buy a nice
Oh yeah,
new
see,
apartment, get
can't
sweet
be
things.
doing
I'm gonna get a cold plunge tub, dude. I'm gonna have a
that.
sauna.
Can't
It's gonna
do
be sick,
that.
dude. I'm gonna and yeah, you're just like, oh no, dude, what have I
Yeah.
done? I'm just still broke. Here I am. Here I am, just still having my podcast. Fucking
Oh,
god damn it, dude. But it's
this
it
isn't what you were dreaming about when you.
yeah, and it's I've seen so many projects that I have missed, and then I've seen the people that have gotten it, and it's always kind of just like the best thing to do is just be like, okay, like I can see that, that makes sense. Because if you're just bitter, it's like the thing's done. What are you gonna do? Like
Yeah.
what's the point?
I mean, I also there has not been a single thing in my life where like I wanted something, someone else got it, and I cared for more than like a day,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Like you said, I mean, it it happens the way it happens. So like I'm really uh I mean this will sound weird, but it's like I've been really sort of pondering like free will lately,
Yeah,
and
sweet.
I kind of like got to a point of like I don't really think we really have that,
Hmm.
and you know obviously I get people do, but it's like it's a sort of a paradox in a way. But like when something doesn't go my way, it's like, oh, well, like this thing that maybe I like was vibrating feverishly at this frequency of like I must have this thing, and I did everything
Mm-hmm.
I could to get it, and I did not get it. I did not attain that thing. Like what this is doing is like that told me that like that day, July 10th, like I did not need to be getting ready to murder it at this freaking Hollywood Bowl or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was on a path for something completely different. So what that tells me in that situation, especially something like this that we're talking about, like an audition or something for a work or a gig, you know, man, that's especially easy because it's like, oh, okay, cool. So now on July 1st, I have this information with which like that frees me up to like now I get to go figure out, well, what am I going to be doing on July 10th? There must be some other purpose for me on that day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm needed elsewhere, obviously. So, like, let me not spend even one fraction of a second, like, worrying about what could have been or how bad I wanted it and why I didn't get it. Or, like, that's not part of my, that's not on my path. This is, so here we go. Like, that's one thing I don't have to think about now.
That's
I'm that
interesting.
much closer to my purpose then.
Do you
You
are
know?
you somebody? I've been thinking a lot about my faith lately. Like, am I in like or my absence of faith,
Right.
more accurately, because faith is not really a tangible thing, right? It's not something I can grab onto and see. And so I'm just like, I have a hard time just like believing in like what's going to happen is going to happen. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I think like I have to go and make what's going to happen. And so like I'm curious if you're, because like the way it sounds is like it sounds like you might have some faith. And like how for me just specifically, like how do you, selfishly I'm curious, like how do
Right.
you get there with yourself?
Um, you know, I'm a big believer in, and I for a long time I've been a big believer in like just manifestation. You know, so you know, ever since I think, you know, I was like, yeah, like 16 or 17 probably. I started I started like seeing little things in my life where like, you know, I felt like I had like conjured things with my mind, you know, like
Mm,
attracted stuff. Like sometimes, I mean, I just noticed that things that I had imagined would come.
mm-hmm.
And at first that was like kind of scary to me. And I think
Sure.
this is more significant. I see that as I, more significant now. Like I understand that better than is like. I mean, that in a way is like one of the core pieces of our life as humans. Is actually like, well, fear, but like specifically like it's the fear of your own capabilities, like your own creative capacity to like build or destroy is like it comes, it's a great responsibility, it seemingly that comes with a great deal of fear attached, you know, like, and in that case in me at like 16 or 17, like imagining that I could like call towards me anything I thought of and manifest anything, like was kind of frightening because, you know, instinctively I think I understood I had some very dark things inside me.
Oh yeah,
I was
man.
afraid to manifest, you know. Uh,
Invasive thoughts start coming through, I'm
and
sure.
not understanding at that point, like as I where I started this, is that like these things were inside you and they are coming out one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're and in fact there is a specific way that they are going to come out. You just don't know what it is yet. You're on the path you're on. Like that's clear once you, like when you cross thresholds or landmarks, right? You're like, you see like, wow, this is the only way this could have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And like whether we like it or not, each one of us, like at some point on this path, you take your last step and breathe your last breath on this planet. Like all of our roads end there. We're, you know, it's yours and yours alone, as far as the way we like interact with the world here.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
no one else can come with you because like the you that, you know, like as you see, like you die, you're, and this again is, it's like all those fears, it's all one together in a way. Like it all boils down to like everyone, whether they admit it or not, some point along here is afraid of dying or what happens after you die,
Sure.
you know.
Sure.
um and that can like really just ripple down your life and actually make you behave in crazy ways while you're alive. Like imagine like you're alive for, so you're alive for 100 years and you're so afraid of death that it guides your every action and step. It makes you like live a certain way that maybe isn't even comfortable, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like that is where you're going inevitably one way or another. And when I think like, once you get there, you just like any other big milestone, your graduation or marriage or the birth of a child, you'll realize this, I could only have reached this place in this one way. On the way in,
Mm.
I saw all these different paths and ways I could go, but like now that I'm here, I realize this was the only way. There was only
Mm.
one way, and this was it. You know, like, and I think maybe while like understanding that is helpful, it's still not faith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have thought for quite some time that, and I think as a combination of, things I've learned from, if it's science or, I don't know, poetry or music or art, you know, spirituality, that like, that all things are connected, you know, the, over the entire universe. Um, that like, we are, housed, like what we are, our, what I guess we'd usually would call soul, is housed in this frame, and then the frame ceases. I mean, we would say it fails your body, it degrades and fails. But another way of looking at it might be that, like, the you that is housed in here has no further need
Mm.
of this frame, so it sheds it
Yeah.
and moves on, right? And we like touch all of that. If you know depends on, I guess, what church or religion you go to, like, there's some element of that in all of our spiritual beliefs. And again, like, it's, you can sort of suspect that or believe that. It's easy to believe when you look around and realize, like, every human spiritual practice essentially describes that more or less the exact same way. And they didn't
Yeah.
like talk to each other about it to figure that out. It just, everybody has assessed the situation more or less the same. Like,
Mm-hmm.
our bodies are housing some essential part that is really us, and
Mm-hmm.
and then like the body is done, and we don't know where the other part goes, because how would you know? How would
Right.
someone dies, and then that essence is no longer there to tell you what happened, right? To tell you a
Yeah.
story like we tell each other, like you tell kids to go to bed at night when they're afraid of the dark, which is just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid to go to sleep because what happens if I don't come back, right? Like, they don't.
Yeah.
It's that unknown that makes you not. I don't want to even close my eyes because if I close my eyes, I might go to sleep and never come back. They're afraid of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And you tell them a story, so something they know the ending to, right? Like,
Right.
they don't want to hear like a brand new story. They want to hear like the same one again and again and again. They already
Yeah.
know it, how it goes. That's how you go to sleep, is because you know the end. Unlike your life, where a saber-toothed tiger can run up and bite your fucking head off. You're like, oh god, I know that Goldilocks is gonna be fine, so I can
Right.
pass out. When I'm watching
Right.
the freaking House of the Dragons shit. Like, I'm watching Sopranos. I've seen this shit like 5 times. Like,
Yeah.
once I don't even get past the credits, I'm asleep already. Like, just get that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
song of Law and Order. I'm like, good night, because you already know what's gonna happen. Like, yeah, it's gonna be horrifying story, but in the end, justice is
Yeah.
served, so you don't have to worry about it. You just pass out.
Sure.
But like, I mean, I think I've held these beliefs for some time, and I mean, even early on, like my early sort of forays into it's a psychedelic into plant medicine, like as a teen, which I wouldn't, and I've talked about this a decent amount in public and in interviews before. And sometimes people are really intrigued, and some folks really don't want to touch it at all. But I wouldn't exactly like tell. I certainly wouldn't tell kids go do a bunch of LSD. But
Right.
I did, and
Yeah.
a lot of kids have, and
Hmm.
for a lot, I mean, I feel lucky. I mean, to be honest with you, I had, you know, for someone who has ultimately really embraced this, and it's been a really important part of my life. Early on, I actually was very afraid of it, and I struggled. Like there was, there's like a battle for me of like, oh my goodness, these, I had really entrenched people who have really like entrenched dogma, and if you come from out of church, I come like maybe not the most religious family necessarily on both sides, but like my father's a preacher, his father not, but his grandfather's a preacher, his father's a preacher. Like
Hmm.
this is like in my bloodline, and I think honestly, this may be a different conversation, but like is that kind of stuff, like it's in your DNA, like it's part of you, and so unstoppable force and an immovable object have like
Hmm.
collided when you send a chemical that like lights up your neurons to this point that like all the barriers are dissolved, and
Right.
you have like this brain that has this rigid like learned pattern of behavior. When they come together, it's like, oh, like I don't want to let go. And that's what was happening inside my head, to a point that you know I was my reaction to LSD as a kid was like I tried to like struck my brain wanted to structure everything and make everything like make into an ordered pattern out of everything. Like oh, this makes sense because it adds up to this, and it was really like, if you look at it now, I'm like, whoa, dude,
Yeah.
you were bugging. Trying to like make shit, oh, everything has to have an order in a sequence. And you know, I think, I guess I have also always had a real good like intuition about certain things, and when I'm like reaching a limit, or I might even just say like again, like there's some force that has like watched me and took care of me, because I've been so many places and situations that when I look at them now, and other people would hear the story of what I've done, and they're like,
Hmm.
what? How are
Yeah.
you? How are you alive right now? And I'm like, I don't know. Something needed me to be, because, you know, I felt myself reaching an edge of, I mean, the simple way would be sanity, but, really like reaching this edge of a grip on functioning
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm never touching this stuff again. That's like age 17 or something like that. And then like, you know, 17 years later, something like that.
Mm.
Like I was really in a rut, like you're talking about, like the very beginnings. I'm touring, I'm like drinking a lot. Like, and I wake up early in the morning, so like being up late at night, like drinking alcohol is how I stayed awake.
Mm.
Like at 6 p.m., I'm like, I could go to bed, right? I need to go to sleep now.
Yeah.
And we're at the sound check.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, and alcohol, I would be like, drink some whiskey in the backstage and get through it. And that's all right for like a couple days. But when you do it like 80 days in a row,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. damaging.
And then obviously it doesn't end after the sound check, like now I'm drinking through the show, and of course I'm drinking after the show, and one day flows into the next, and I'm sleeping only in the daytime, and it's a real mess, and I feel like, I just felt like I don't know what else to do anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and like the thought of this could make acid or mushrooms could make me like lose my grip on reality forever. Like that seems like doesn't seem like much of a risk at this point for me. At that point, it was like that would be might be better than what I'm
Mm.
experiencing right now. To be honest,
Yeah,
to
sometimes it feels like you
not
have
then
something to
at least I
lose or
wouldn't be
something.
worried. Yeah, I wouldn't be worried
Right.
about it. Yeah, I'm fucking
Yeah.
nuts. Okay, get over it.
Yeah. Just
Still got a
confirm.
job.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So I'm like, let me try like a big old chunk of something, and I went in and like ate like first I tried with the mushrooms. I ate like a really massive dose of mushrooms, like
Gee.
where I oh at a party I sat in a chair at this campfire, and over I think like 8 or 9 hours I think I said like three words. So somebody would say, somebody would walk up to me and they go, Aaron, are you okay? I'm like, I'm like, there's all these probably like a novel's worth of stuff is going on in my head, and I'm
Of
like,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, no, I'm not. I can't tell you what's coming in
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
like that was sort of the beginning of a path, not without bumps in the road, but like
Sure.
where I discovered kind of that, looking back on it, I would say this. I'm thinking at 17, like, whoa, I can't handle any more of this. When I think
Mm-hmm.
the reality is, and again, I'm not telling you to
Sure. Of
do
course.
massive amounts of drugs, but I will say this: like, if you're gonna do any, you might as well do a whole bunch, because I think that like the thing that was holding me back, that was making it so uncomfortable, was that I only took this small amount. It allowed me to like hover in this area where I could
Trying to control
still,
it.
yeah, just trying to hold on and just be in control. You hear people say, like, I'll bring it up to people, and they're like, I've been really interested to try that, but I really don't. I don't like being out of control. And
Yeah.
I'm like, the things I hear people saying, I know I used to say these things myself, but I realized, like, I'm like, no, see, that's why that's the thing, is like, that's how
Yeah.
I know you need more, because
Yeah. Because you haven't
because
submit
you're
to this yet.
misunderstanding what this thing is doing. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's not taking you away from reality. It's showing you more
And in
of
order
what
to do that, you need to
reality is.
surrender.
Yeah,
Right.
it's showing you more, that there is, you know, that our brains have, as you reach adulthood, like it has learned to flatten our experience, like, to this, like, how few dimensions can we view things by.
Mm-hmm.
And now the reality is that and I mean, it's kind of almost cliche now, New York Times bestseller, but Michael Pollan, How to Change Your
Yeah. It's
Mind.
great, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, but but he goes into these very important things. Like, we're now in this place. Humans are faced this existential crisis, and like, things. Doing the same old thing is exactly what we can't do, right?
Yeah.
And the way we have been experiencing life has led to this thing where you become an adult. Now you're on autopilot, and you're just doing the things. Like, it has flattened your experience, and we're in a place where, like, it's even new information. Like Einstein, you know starts talking about like the fact that, I mean, essentially shows that a thing can be in more than one place at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like a real thing. Like there's you can like do something to an electron here, and it is also doing something over here on the other side of the universe. Like
Yeah.
they've proven this experientially, in a particle accelerator. So it's like to think that we can just like derp, 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 just go right ahead. Like, no, maybe you misunderstood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there. I mean, all sorts of crazy things have come to light. No pun intended. Like, since these discoveries, where like, you know, where it's basically like that. Like, everything is moving at a speed of light. Like that's what it means. It's a constant. Like everything is moving that, and like the faster you go, the slower time goes for you only.
Yeah.
Which is like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that we presume about about and we take for granted are all these things are not just in question, but like can be shown to also they're true and also not true. Because like
Yeah.
our rules under this gravity on Earth, they are what they are. Like you fucking get pushed out the window of a seventh floor, you're falling down, and you're fucking gonna get skull splat. Like
Yeah.
at least that's what's gonna happen about 99.99999999999% of the time. And then that
Mm-hmm.
rest, like you're gonna like hover at the hover before you hit and stand up and walk off.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is though this really real possibility that like I'm gonna like spit a spitball and it goes through the wall. There is. And like, but all that to say like that all things being unified, that's just suggestive. Like as a lot of people have accepted, matter can't be created or destroyed, right? So I mean, what that means is that part of you that's in there, that's housed by this, encased here, like it can't be destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
like here or elsewhere. So, like, the bottom line is there is nothing to fear.
Mm.
And, super various religious people will hate this, but like that next level, you're going no matter what you do here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be good or bad because and you really get down to it, a lot of people that who's good or bad depends on who's saying it.
Yeah.
Here, like a lot of people think I'm bad automatically,
For sure.
without talking to me or whatever they think. But like, and that goes vice versa for so many people. But like, one way or the other, at the end, you're walking through. This door is going to open, and you're going through, whether you want to or not. And I
Yeah.
think my suspicion is, you don't go until you have learned what you need to learn. It's that simple. And each one of us, we know we're unfortunately getting so distant from this that we no wonder everyone is even more and more afraid because we're being pushed away from like that voice. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I mentioned this to you before. Like my journey, my journey has had some really interesting turns, and it's included, psilocybin. It's been LSD. It's been uh, DMT. You know, uh, even ketamine. Even though that's different vibe for me, that's not really doing the same thing for me. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but and then more recently, almost. it's funny. I can't call it an accident because nothing's an accident.
Sure.
But you know, I experienced the toad, the venom of the Sonoran Desert Toad.
Wow, dude.
Uh, and I was looking. I remember that like this just popped up for me, seemingly out of nowhere at one point. These people I was staying with were like talking about going, and I think I was just kind of like I was just shooting the shit with them. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'll go do that. I didn't really know much about it, but of course I've heard of this before. Like people smoking toad. I'm like, that's weird. But okay.
Smoking, not licking,
Well, actually,
smoking.
well, yeah, I mean, the urban legend being that the lick, and I guess that's what they did. But now it's more commonplace that people are synthesizing it, and then
Oh,
you
wow.
basically like take like a bong hit.
Oh, God.
But yeah, and it's interesting. Like I fear again. Like I was very nonchalant, like yeah, I'll go. And then as when the day came, I was like, whoa,
Kicked in. Yeah,
wait a
I
minute,
bet.
am I really about to do this? Let me look this up again. You know,
You hadn't even like
like what am I?
seen what it
I
was.
mean, I think I did, but I don't know. I was like, let me just make sure I'm thinking about the right thing. So I look I look it up, and this is very interesting. Like I looked it up two different times, like in the morning before I went, and like I found two different things. Like the first time I looked, I found, for example, what I read the first time, which was Mike Tyson talking about it, because Mike Tyson did it, and he was talking about it, and like you know, Mike Tyson's amazing. You know, like it's
Hmm.
not always that easy to understand from his stories. Like I'm not sure I'm get really grasping what's going on here from his story. But like he had the shaman on this one interview. It's like him and the shaman together. So I was kind of like watching that, and it was really interesting. It sounded. I mean, it's very. It made me very curious. I'm a very curious person. So like, he said it was very different for each person. And then I read some other people's experiences that sounded like really amazing. I mean, they're talking about ego death and spiritual death, and like being a feeling of being reborn, which is pretty heavy shit. So I'm like, all right, well then I go and I looked. That was me just straight up just googling like 5-MeO DMT, or the Bufo toad. That's what I was looking at, and that's what it gave me. Then I'm sitting there and I got a little paranoid. The more I thought, I got a little more paranoid. And I was like, well, let me just make sure like there's no like health risks or anything like that. So I look it up, like, is it gonna will 5-MeO DMT give you a heart attack or like spike your blood pressure or something like that?
Right.
And when I looked at it that way, where the fear is part of the search query,
Mm-hmm.
it gave me
Mm-hmm.
nothing but doom and gloom and
Of
warnings of
course.
how, yeah, like this person, suddenly people are dying from this. Don't believe anybody what they say. This is what it'll really happen in all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, wow, this shit just spat back at me exactly what I was like. But I
Right.
realized in that moment, like, wow, it gave me what I was looking for though. Like that time, I was looking for negative, scary shit, and I found it. And it's like a little bit like what, in another word, and I do think the internet is just mimicking our connection in the real world, So so it's doing that same thing, like out here too. You're energetically, if you go looking for like a disaster, that's what you get. And
Right.
and
Of
in this
course, man.
moment we're at,
Confirmation bias.
yeah, right. It just answers your question. Oh, here, there you go. That's what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And so here I am with these two very different results, and I'm sitting there really nervous about it. And it's such a weird thing, even for me to hear myself say out loud, but it's like, essentially, I felt like I didn't find the answer. Like, I was like, what's the answer? What should I decide? And nothing came. And then suddenly I had this feeling like I like heard my own voice basically saying like, "Come on, you know you're gonna do it."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh well, I'm already." It was almost like, I swear, it was almost like myself in the future talking to me.
Did this all happen in like a matter of 5 minutes while you were
This
sitting there,
was
like
like
deciding if you're going to do
maybe
it?
an hour before I went.
Okay.
So then, I mean, it really was like, it was like my future self who's already done this is now telling me like, "Come on, man, stop being
Yeah.
such a wuss."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "All right." So I go, and yeah, I mean, I would say like it gave me, and maybe it's just facing that sort of terrifying prospect, like, and being able to say to yourself like, I mean, as I did, I inhaled this potion, and go diving back into this cushion.
Immediately.
Yeah, just right off. You can't just like
Yeah.
falling back. Which, by the way, and this will give you a sense of this, is like on the way, it's almost like this me falling back could be like an hour,
Wow.
like, or that,
Yeah.
or
Right.
I don't know.
Just as fast as it actually is.
But I
Yeah.
know that like that's the last thing I remember is this motion, and then just like I don't know how else I wouldn't know how else to describe this, but nothing. Which I don't know how to describe nothing, but I
Hmm.
mean, it is there was the absence of everything that
Everything.
you know or have ever seen or heard or anything. But
Whoa.
that didn't last. It's like if that's like white for me, then there starts to be like colors, and then there's like maybe like I would call like pulsing, which then you could say, oh, this pulsing is a pattern,
Hmm.
like, but are these patterns lights? Are they sounds? Like, I don't know. And
Hmm.
and at some point I thought and realized like, oh, like the the patterns that I'm seeing are music. Like, I'm just not differentiating between sounds, between like sound waves and light waves. I'm processing like all these things as one. And I thought at that moment, whatever you can call that, I thought like, oh shit, like did I die?
Hmm.
And I was like, fuck. Like really. I was like, ah, god damn it, I fucking
Fucked up.
died? Ah, shit.
Shit,
And
man.
then and then I thought, you know, I
Accepted
mean,
it.
all right. Like I lived. It was pretty
Wow.
good. I was like, it was pretty good. And then right then I thought again, like, fuck, like, man, that means like I won't see my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm sad about that. Like, I'm sad for them.
Right.
And then I saw them. And they were like, like, what's up, Dad? Like, just kind of
Hmm.
yeah, like, we're good.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like,
Whoa.
oh, wow, okay, cool. So they're good. All right. And like once, that was like my one kind of, I don't know about this. And once I had that, like there's like this whirlwind of interactions,
Yeah.
like that. Where like, oh man, I saw my mom and my dad. Oh hey, what's up? Yeah, my cousins over here.
Yeah.
So my friends, and like this like rapid, like almost like I was solving problems. Like I'm just like, okay, there's a little thing that's not quite. Let's tidy this up and make sure we solidify this connection for me and reestablish like all these little things, but it happened really fast. And then slowly, like have regained awareness of where I even was. Like, oh yeah, I'm like, what am I? Who is that a person? Like, I'm looking like, oh, this is the person that I came with.
Mm.
Like, I'm like staring at them, and I can see them looking at me, but I'm like slowly realizing, like, oh, that's a face. Oh, it's a face. And then I'm like, okay, the face. Oh, that's my friend. I know that.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, she's smiling. She's smiling at me. Oh yeah,
Mm.
right, cool. Like, I mean, the simplest things you can think of that you do not think about anymore were like
Right.
requiring a
So
whole
heightened.
reintroduction. Like, oh, this
Right.
is a face. Face
Wow.
is attached to a human like me. Oh, that's a human. Oh, I know that human. I'm connected to them. That's my friend. My
Wow.
friend has a name. Like all these things, like
Yeah.
calculations, like slowly. It's like literally like building you from scratch. It's I
Yeah.
mean, without question, like the most profound thing I've ever experienced. Like by far. I
Well,
mean,
you probably also like came to realizing that you were actually alive after accepting having kind of died,
that's what I
and
mean.
then like having to like reconcile that,
Right.
which is
Because
like
when you
profound as
realize like,
fuck.
wow, I can, oh, it's like, again, paradoxical, like, which is, I think, like, that's what we need at this time. Like, we're realizing as humans, like, we tried all this stuff, like, where you have, like, religions, like, okay, these things, if you do these 10 things, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And if you become a bad person, then you go, these things happen. And if you do, but like everything in your life tells you, like, that's not how shit is. Like, a person is not fucking good or bad. Like,
Right.
everybody is, in fact, a person's not even a person. Like, you're made of like 800 billion weird organisms that are all doing their own thing. They don't give a fuck what we think.
Right.
They're having their own, they're living and dying inside your body, and they don't give a fuck what we think. Like, we're, for all we know, like, we're living for their benefit. Who's using who?
Yeah.
And really at this point, like, it's like, fuck, our more a very cynical person can take that and use it for to do great harm, because they realize, like, look, man, all these people are fucking asleep anyway, and if you put everybody to sleep, we can fucking use them for our own purposes, which is what happens now. Like, they use your
Mm-hmm.
eyeballs, they're selling your eyeballs for ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
doing that to all of us. Like, they don't even care if you work or produce. You don't have to do anything to be a productive member of society. We're just going to take it, because all we're just going to take as much of your attention as possible, because like they know that, like, in a way, like a human, just like anything else, can be a kind of automaton that you just press the buttons and then you do whatever. Like, just, what's the problem? It's stressed out. Well, let it, it's dehydrated, so you put water in there, and it's like it needs nutrients, so you fill it with some protein. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what there's too much tension, and it feels like it might get violent. You press the sex button. Like, it's relieved, and now it goes to bed. You
Mm-hmm.
tell it the fucking story. It's heard 1,000 times. What does it do? It goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, so that that knowledge has been out there, you know, but it can be used for the wrong purposes. But I think for me, like, the bottom line was that, like, these are all things that I knew. I mean, I felt very comfortable and confident. Like everything is everything. Everything is connected. Everything is one. Like we have to there's a reason why we say treat other people how you want to be treated, because they're a reflection of you. Like we're one family. That's why. Because if I mistreat you, I'm mistreating myself, right?
Right.
But so I know this. But like that toad venom, it's like I know it. I don't believe it anymore. I know it
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it just shows it to you, like plain as day, as plain as
Wow.
can be, while you're still in this form. As far as I know, I don't know of anything that like can show you this as clearly or as strong. I've never experienced ayahuasca, but my what I've heard about it and my intuition is that it's miraculous as well, but not the it. This is not what it shows you. It shows you something else.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That is also very specific to you, but like
Sure.
it doesn't quite tap into this particular vein. Like this is really just like a sort of like, oh, you want to know what reality actually is? Like this is it. Like
Yeah.
that fear. I mean, I don't know. It dissolved, and I suppose like it could come back at some point. Like if I got in a really hectic situation, sure, I'll be afraid at the moment, or the moment I actually do die. Like I probably will be afraid for a minute. There'll be a rush, and I'll be afraid. But
Yeah.
but the bottom line is like I got a sense of like really, and underneath it all, who we really are. And it even was that voice, like I think back now, like when I really think about it, I just think of myself like, oh fuck, I died.
Mm. What a
Like
trip.
like
Yeah. Shoot, man.
damn
Dag nabbit. Yeah.
it. Oh well, all right. I
Dude,
mean,
it makes me it's so
what are you
crazy,
gonna
man. It
do? I
makes me,
mean, what are you gonna do?
for
You
sure,
know,
of course.
fuck.
It's really attractive, man. Like in a way, for me, I've been thinking about doing like I've been talking to people who've done a lot of like ayahuasca journeys and stuff,
Yeah,
and I know there's like hip ways to do that shit out in like LA, and I'm just I don't know, I don't I don't want to follow a trend of doing a thing. I want to like go and really like try to experience this in a right way. It scares the shit out of me, man. But like from hearing you talk about your experience, it's God, it's cool, man, and it's profound in that when I kind of brought up the whole subject of faith, this is kind of how you brought this to my attention of that idea, and what I'm taking away from it is that, which is actually really helpful for me, is that it's not necessarily like the faith that this will right? It's like
right.
if you can surrender to like yourself,
Yeah,
you can like what will be.
yeah,
Like just that, like you aren't in control, and that if you can just
right.
surrender,
That's
it's not
okay.
like because I did the same thing. I stopped drinking, and I had to do the same thing with like I'm not gonna stop drinking. I'm gonna start doing something else. I have to reframe it in my brain, right, to like
Right.
make it make sense for me, so that I don't have to like fall back into the same patterns.
Yeah.
And so when I think about faith as instead of thinking like faith will give me this, it's like no, surrendering will allow you to
Yeah.
understand that you're not even in control of any of this anyways, so
Right.
just like let it happen,
Right.
let yourself be,
Yeah.
and there's freedom and liberation in that.
Yeah.
And your experience is like a perfect example of that, man, and it's like really
That is
profound.
the key. That it's like not it's not like, because I had the same thing with I've had the same thing with tobacco. It's like you know I, I like tried every possible thing to stop smoking
To quit.
cigarettes, right? And
Yeah.
like, but I'd always go back. It's just like a nonstop struggle. And, um, I started to think about it though as like, I'm like, God, I gotta stop smoking. It's like, no, the thing is that I want to be this version of myself that does not smoke.
Yeah.
So like, more powerful than me like counting how many cigarettes I have or whatever,
Right.
And certainly then because really all that does is I'm like, oh man, I had 5 today. Yesterday was 3. I'm
Hmm.
going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. You're
Like,
just
hear
like
me? Yeah,
negotiating
let me give myself a
bullshit.
bunch of shit about this.
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
so much worse than yesterday. You're a
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
That fucking annoying ass voice in your head, like it's like, well, what? It's more about it being like an imaginative exercise. Like, well, what does that not smoke in me look like? What's he doing right now? Like,
Yeah.
how's he feel? And
Yeah.
what does that look like? How do you carry that? And like that has been way more beneficial. It went so much farther than any other approach that I ever took. Like, because every other approach that I ever took involves shame and guilt.
Hmm.
Every single one. Like,
Totally. I
and,
feel like
and
you're.
really was centered around shame and guilt. And like, as
Yeah.
long as that's, again, look at what we're talking about here: shame, guilt, fear. Like,
Yeah.
that's like so many parts of our life. Like, those are the things, like the dominant feelings associated with a lot of these things, including like milestones, like going in or out of school, marriage, death, like everything, birth of children. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, how you doing? Like, oh, I'm scared shitless, bro,
Yeah.
about to
Right.
have a kid. Like,
Right. Yeah.
like, you mean like the fucking gazillion people that have been born ever since the
Right.
beginning
Of
of fucking,
course.
what are you fucking afraid of? Like, like, and I get it, I was there too, but it's like,
Yeah.
we are carrying around a lot of like bullshit emotions that have no use, like
Yeah.
practical use whatsoever. They're not doing any of us any good. I mean, it's like fear, and maybe it's just like for lack of place to put it, because you used to be like, oh, I'm afraid because there's fucking saber-toothed tigers about to bite my head off.
Hmm.
Like, that's some
Yeah.
shit that's worth being afraid of. But
Yeah.
you know, like,
Right.
man, I'm afraid that my alarm clock won't go off.
Well, we're just always
I'm
like
afraid I'll sleep through
bargaining.
my alarm. It's like not a
Right.
real, like, this isn't
It's
real,
it.
you
It's
know?
just so interesting because it seems like we're always kind of bargaining with our consciousness, right? Rather than just like having it and accepting it and like trying to reframe it. Like we're trying to be like, well, if I, yeah, like the same thing to cigarettes, the same thing to drinking, the same thing to like making decisions, being conscious of like making conscious choices. It's just like, just we're constantly like, yeah, the shame spiral of like, well, now I'm feeling guilty because I didn't do this. I've been bargaining, so like I've created some like hypothetical, if I do this then I'll get that, and then it just
Yeah, and
becomes
never
this like
yeah,
this awful kind of practice that you're kind of like in this hamster wheel all over again in, because you're trying to like buy your time and buy your like your joy. You're trying to like earn your happiness and try to like get your feelings of like, wow, I'm proud of myself now,
right, right,
rather than just being like, how about I just like, again, I keep going back to this like surrender,
yeah,
just like, because that seems to be the thing that you had an epiphany with, and it kind of gave you all of these, you know, answers, so to speak, in a way which there is no answer. It's just
right,
you are here and you don't have control, and just like allow yourself to be
right.
free in this
The
space.
word that I really liked from it, and there were two things that I was just stuck in my head when I came out of this experience, was like the word acceptance, and the other word was possibilities. Because I think
Mm,
on acceptance, it's like, I think, like the moment of, oh shit, I did I die? And in that moment, like, I guess that's the like life flash before your eyes, right? You see like everything in your life, judge it all together. And it was like, when I did that, I thought, not bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I really was kind of like,
Yeah. This isn't as
well
bad
done,
as,
dude. That
yeah,
was wow. All
pretty
right,
decent.
man. You
Yeah.
fucking yeah. You got it off, man. Well done.
Uh,
You know, and like when you really get down to it, like man, like what? Yeah, what you did is plenty. It's plenty. You know, like it's what you were meant to do. It's great. You know, we're giving ourselves all this shit. Like you don't need to do that. That's number one. But then, and then like possibilities, it's like okay. Also, 30 minutes later, I'm well aware like I'm not dead.
yeah.
I'm in fact very much alive. You know,
Yeah.
I got back up and put my shoes on, and we're back in the world. Let's go. Like so,
Yeah.
like possibilities freed from this crushing doubt and fear and useless guilt and shame. What can I do now? Like, how much more effective and powerful can I be? Especially just freed of all that, and then beyond that, like without the need of like when I say powerful, like I'm not here trying. I'm not trying to powerful like where I have a you know I can get into all the clubs without going waiting online. I'm not talking about building a fucking
Mm-hmm.
4 meter fence, stone fence around my house like Drake. Sorry to fucking pile on Drake. Sorry, Drake. You know, like
He's
I'm
definitely
not like
listening.
really pulling for Drake. I don't want to punch. That's like punching down now. Like
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Like, but you know, I mean, he's a useful example though of someone who like chases
Totally.
these like pie in the sky things. Like these things are gonna make you whole. They're not gonna make you whole, and that's what part of what this whole thing was about. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it. That's not in the end. Like when you really I mean, not only can you not take your money with you, you know, which is funny, the guy has a song, When I Die, put the money in my grave. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's in his song. Like, that is the fucking ultimate, like, hubris move that brings upon, like, karmic catastrophe in ancient mythology. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the proportion of which this guy is dealing with. Like, wow, come on, man. Like, what do you
Right.
put the money in your grave?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like give it to fucking people who are starving on the street. Like really?
Yeah.
Like how disconnected can you be?
Yeah.
And like what do you expect to happen to you when you put those kind of thoughts and feelings out into the
Mm-hmm.
world? Like on a massive scale. Like you've broadcast that everywhere, this attitude. And I do think like in general, like we are now reaching the point of like you're seeing stuff like this that like was kind of unthinkable before. Like
Yeah.
you saw like, and I have problems with. I don't want to get in all into that the whole battle thing, but it's like you know on some level because on some level it does feel like art and commerce had a fight,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
commerce kicked the shit out of art.
Mm.
Well, actually, art kicked the shit out of commerce on one level,
Mm-hmm.
but in the end, all that shit was owned by the big daddy you know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
UMG anyway. So they were fucking laughing their way to the bank. So it
Right.
is like, but again, contradictions because you did have this like master poet go against you know, a celebrity personality, an actor of like a method actor of the level that we may never have seen before. Somebody whose
Mm-hmm.
entire life is an act. That he like plays this character 24 fucking 7 in front of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this Jewish kid from fucking suburbs in Toronto that goes around pretending to be, you know, a corner boy gangster from fucking Houston or Memphis or
Right.
a city that doesn't even exist because you made it up.
Yeah. Right.
Like this is a very like of our times kind of moment where yeah, you have this conflict, but the contradictions are like these are the kind of things that like going forward in this environment, like we have to be able to wrap our heads around the fact that this thing is like a win for art over commerce, and commerce fucking collected all the dough too.
Yep. Usually does.
It's still all that still fed the fucking machine.
Mm-hmm.
Still, like if you ever see that Black Mirror, one of the early episodes of Black Mirror where the everybody's like basically on the treadmill on the elliptical machine
Oh
all
yeah.
the time,
Uh-huh.
and they
Yeah.
had like
Yeah.
the American Idol competition,
Yeah.
and the girl gets like through and she does this performance of her life, and then they just like make her do spoiler alert, they make her do porn instead. But fucking then
Yeah,
sorry
man.
everyone, it's still good to
Okay.
watch. But then dude um and then dude, so he's pissed and he goes and does this super dramatic monologue with a fucking thing, like piece of glass up to his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And whoa, like they're like, oh God, what do we do with this? This guy's like, he's about to tear the system down. Look at this revolutionary poet. And but what
Yeah.
do? Like they realize, like, God, don't kill him, right? He becomes a martyr, right? So what do? You fucking co-opt, you gave him a show. They
Yep.
gave him a show, and now every night he does this fucking poetry monologue with a fucking piece of glass to his neck. It becomes an act because they just co-opt the revolution, the language of revolutionaries, and intellectual. Like, oh
Yep.
yeah, no, this is great. Come on in, yeah. We'll give you a little slot to say that shit you like to say. It's like it don't matter. We're just we're just printing money back here. We don't give a fuck, you know. But
Well, how does it make you lean into your now, like at this point in your life, like where are you leaning, like for how you want to
I'm
continue reflecting your own experiences into your music and into your process?
I'm just embracing the absurd, I mean, as
Mm-hmm.
it's been
Just
part of
joining
my
the circus.
ethos for some time now, but now more than ever, yeah, I feel like I'm embracing the absurd, and I'm like probably for the first time, like I'm really like tuned into what it is I like and what I love about this shit because you know that's the one thing nobody can do for you is like they can't enjoy it for you. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that have come my way, like they've been really cool to everybody else, but it was never like what I gave a shit about,
Sure.
like so for me, like um, for I've always been really attracted to like the blinking lights on the knobs, so like when I started from this place of like, oh, I'm gonna be this like rock star or whatever, but then increasingly over time, what has kept me interested is the tech and just like the pursuit of the sounds, like, and I don't like, and probably this is a failure of our of our marketing probably scheme, but it's like I like am so deeply involved with every part of especially the creation of the art that like I barely like pick my head up at the end for like, oh yeah, the marketing, all
Yeah.
right, take a
Okay.
photo, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm out. Like
Yeah.
back to I'm back to rewiring my pedal board. It's really,
Right.
and
Right.
I definitely have that again, like the more so an introvert, a personality of an introvert. So I'm here with my books and blinking lights, but that orients me and gives me like a center to be, and like you know, even though, and it's good when this happens, like, the more, like, I guess the better I do, the more conflict there is in a way
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, people want you like dressed up and in front of cameras. Like, I'm like, no, I want to wear the same shirt every day,
Yeah, yeah, of
all week,
course.
and
Fuck
be
yeah.
with no cameras and just make shit all the time. But that's not realistic, maybe at all times. So, I mean, I think right now, like, that's just what keeps me in is that, like, I think I'm now a little finally can relax and kind of like just realize that, you know, I've got this. I sort of fought my way to the opportunity to just do what I always did, which was like tinker with stuff and play things and learn nonstop. Like, that's what I always did as a kid. Like, that's what my obsession, all this is my obsession, the words, the
Mm-hmm.
music, the production, the new tech, the new ways of like creating music is like, you know, I don't know. I guess like they say you can't teach old dog new tricks, but if a dog wants to learn new tricks, a dog learns new tricks. Like, say what you
Mm-hmm.
want. Like, I'm just,
Right.
I, I, I'm here for it. Like, let me see what's this new, what's the new software? What's the new type of plugins? What's the like? I just want to know. Like, new
Yeah.
style of mics and things like that, like drum machine. Now I'm in the vintage drum machines and shit.
It's cool, man. It sounds like you surrendered, man. And you're just like letting yourself be the person that you always have been, just haven't maybe like
Right.
known how to really like
That's yeah.
put forward.
That's what it is.
And that's
You try
fucking
to let
cool.
that let that person, you know, be as the most fullest expression of themselves that they can. You
What's
know.
what's interesting to me is that like it takes the hardest amount of work to achieve what you have finally like seemingly arrived at. But what's ironic is that once you get there, it's the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah. Like
It's just like
all the
living,
effort.
being.
It's like so much. All that effort is because you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
That's why you're trying so hard. Because that's
yeah,
not what you're supposed to be doing. Like,
yeah,
if you're supposed to be doing it, it would just be like, oh, natural, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, of course, because you're like struggling. No, I'm supposed to be like this. Like, no,
Uh,
there's no
I'm
such
not there
thing
yet,
as.
man. I'm
I mean, you know what it is?
definitely.
It's like I'm really working on this. It's very difficult to do this, but like, you try to just take the word supposed, like, to just never say anything supposed to do anything ever.
Hmm.
Like, it's
Yeah,
very difficult, and you catch yourself. You're like, "Oh, I did it again." But
yeah,
I try to just never. I should, or I should be. No,
yeah.
like, you're either doing or you're not
I
doing.
will or I won't. I
You know,
have or I haven't.
yeah.
Yeah,
Stick to that, and like, you're in good shape. That should
yeah.
that
It's so crazy because it's so simple. It's such simple thinking, but it
it
is
is.
really hard
Simple things
to
are
arrive
always
at.
difficult to get. You know.
Yeah. Well, well, dude, I mean, I really look forward to like seeing and hearing how this all is reflected through the stuff that you continue to put out, man. Cause it's like, it's cool, man. And I think it's really like, this selfishly has been like a very beneficial conversation for me to like be like, oh,
That's great.
sweet, dude. Like, that's
Great.
nice, man. I'm
That's great.
sure that will resonate with people that listen in as well,
I'm glad. I
because
hope so.
there's so much truth, man. So much truth in all the stuff that you're saying. And it's very like, humble. And you have obviously so much humility. And because you get to go see you actually live and you're like, oh shit, man, this guy's like that. Whoa, dude. Like, it's so cool that you have both of those parts of yourself intact and really kind of operating it at those high levels. It's admirable, man. It's enviable. I'm really excited to like hope to try and like follow in those footsteps and get there myself, because I'm certainly like not arrived at that space yet, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
cool to
not.
see that it's possible. It's cool to see that like if you can really like surrender, you can get there.
You're right where you're supposed to be. You know.
Yeah, you're right, man. I want to come take some toad with you, baby. Let's go.
We'll work it out, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
You know, I'm due for a refresh from.
Where do you go?
Just this dude, like, you know, this guy
Just
that,
down the road,
yeah,
some back
just
alley.
got introduced to this guy, and he's got a little spot, and you know, you really need somebody there. You can't
For
like,
sure. You got to have
uh,
like a guide or something,
yeah, and
somebody safe.
only one person can do it at a time. So,
Hmm.
like, cause you're out, like, you're just like laid out
How
on the.
long does the whole thing last? Like from like the
Mine
outside,
was
not
like
like
30 minutes or
that's
so.
it. But it seems like life. It seems like the universe.
Endless, yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
kind of endless.
Wow. What a trip.
I went with one friend who like was in there like went down for like an hour, and honestly, like the dude was like looking at me like I was like looking at him. I was like, this has been a while, right? Like I didn't say anything. It's funny because I felt weird talking, so I was kind of like looking at him. I was
What do you do as an observer? Just like
like, is
sit
this?
there and like,
You're just sitting there. I mean, watching, which is pretty weird. I mean, it's
I
pretty weird to
bet.
watch. If the
Yeah.
person can look like nothing's going on, they're completely dead.
Or they can be like
Or
super.
some people like secrete stuff. Like
Mm,
this girl I went with was just like there was just like shit just coming out of her mouth like for
mm,
like 20 minutes straight. Like
drooling at the mouth.
I don't know what it. It
Wow.
was like foam, like some
Crazy.
weird. It really like literally like squeezes something out of you that's not
Wow.
supposed to be in there. You know, like it's like oh, it finds
I'm
something and it's
interested,
like.
man. I really
I
want to
mean,
try.
you know, obviously they haven't looked into these things nearly enough, but there's something to it, like where I think it does like push some kind of like negative vibes out of you. It like actually takes a physical form and comes out sometimes, you know, for some people.
Yeah.
But like the dude also was doing like body work and shit sometimes, like as you, not when you're fully under, but like once I got out, they have vapes of this shit too. So I was doing like
Mm,
vapes, uh, and you don't get that same like you know knockout level, but you sort of just feel it like a little bit of it. And what one of the things it was making me do was like I was moving around and like stretching a lot, and it you know weirded me out for a sec. I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing, dude?" And he's like really like I would be stretching something, and he would like come and like press the shit out of it. And I'm like, it really felt like yeah, like things
wow.
exiting your body. It was really
Mm,
wild. Something
insane,
else.
man.
The toad.
I'm pretty curious. I've been curious for a few years now, and so I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
pick your brain a little more about this
same
stuff,
time. Yeah,
man.
yeah. Anytime, man. Anytime. But yeah,
Very
I gotta
cool.
run take my son get this haircut.
Yeah, go do it, man. You're a
Yeah,
legend, man. I really appreciate you being here, giving us all your insight. Stick with me for just like a minute after we get off,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, man, I really appreciate you. You're such a fucking rad, righteous dude, man. I'm just like thrilled to be getting to know you a little bit more and to
Yeah,
build this
likewise,
relationship.
man. No, it's a pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right, brother. We'll talk soon, man. Thanks for being on the pod.
Thanks, you.
How about that? How about that? How about that, guys? That's Mr. Sun Little. I love that guy to death, man. Aaron Livingston. What a ledge. What a ledge. Really taught me how to kind of surrender to a lot of the things of that process through my brain space of, you're not in control. It's you don't have control anyway. So just like live and let live. Really cool to have talked with him. Guys, stick around for just 1 second. Please, if you haven't already checked out my Patreon page, please do. It is a place where you can go and get all sorts of exclusive content, from puppet shows to movies that I'm putting out to exclusive podcasts that I'm putting about, moments of reflection. Me and Rachel are going to have a conversation pretty soon here. I'm probably going to put it up there. Um, I am moving, so it's going to be a little hard for me to get a lot of stuff up there right away. But there's stuff on there right now, like unreleased movies and all sorts of cool stuff. Um, it's a great place, and I'm really happy to be continuing to put stuff up on there because it makes me happy, and I hope that you feel happy about being there for all of you who are. So appreciate you all. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, post about it, review it, do all the things. Follow this podcast wherever you can. Quick shout out to everybody that's part of the Patreon family: Melissa Kennedy, Scott Scribner, Stacy Walker, Joe Chamas, Jeremy Church, Mo Nowlin, Stephanie Travers, Laura Jower, Peggy McNeil, Heather Schroeder, Griffin Phillips, Carter Adams, Stephen Schuster, Miguel Lopez, Wayne and Joanne Detour, Boomer Barry, Dan Olson, Perry Burton, Jamie, Amanda Catherine, and Monica Alvarez. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you. I love you. Your support means the world to me. I couldn't be doing this without you. And yeah, wish me luck with my move. And I will see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Now that's what I'm talking about.